first of all, in different roles that you play, think about policies that are being written, So one thing you can do is look at what are the board policies in the districts that you're involved with around mental health and wellness and around providing resources to kids. So like a CPS, they have this amazing policy around community learning centers. It says we are going to provide, it's bigger than it's the whole child, and it's the neighborhood, it's the family, and we're going to provide the resources in an integrated way so that we can be able to provide about it. Oh, and then school support is another one. Yeah. All right. Yes.
So, like you're doing on that, they got to have any type of insurance with it. APA. How's that?
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
So it goes into a little bit after right here. So school counseling. So sometimes there are some school counselors have to do different other duties than what we're truly. I've been blessed to be able to be a true school counselor in my business. So what that looks like is academic. We have 3 domains that we work with: academic, social emotional, and college and career. Well, we can't get to academics and college and career, social emotional piece is not delivered, right? So we gotta have those relationships. We have to, me as my co-counselor behind you guys, we have different clubs that we do to make sure we have access to our students. We do girls for women, CPS have all types of things where they can come together and just have girl talk, or we have the MORE program for the young men. So we have to address those needs. We have to address what that looks like as far as help collaborating with our school psychologists, collaborate with our social workers to make sure that piece is addressed. Because like my students, they could be worried about something else going on at home. How can they focus on their academics? We have to address that piece, and we have to be supportive and be mindful of how that is going to approach everything else. So our school counseling, social emotional is our first love. So please understand that. I know sometimes they get mixed up with scheduled lunch or scheduled event, whatever you want to say. But no, we are school counselors. We are trained to support our students' mental health, and we are usually that first stop shop. Now we don't do long-term therapy. That's the difference. But what that looks like is different. I have students come every day, every day, and just want somebody to check in with them. They just want that additional support to know that someone's there, because we don't know everything that they're facing at home. So it's a real passion. That's why I'm here today. It's a passion of mine to make sure you can understand school counselors can address that SEL support as well. You can't be a counselor without SEL. So with that piece, then we get to the academic mind, helping with work, tutoring, and then we get to the college career, getting them success, what that looks like post-secondary, what CPS can do with reading, we can go enroll somewhere, employed, or enlist. So whatever your option is, we want to support you get there. But all that cannot get to that place without the SEL YBD social emotional. That's it. So when it comes to school collaborative, so a typical day where a counselor is, we're in the intervention specialist meetings, the IEP meetings to make sure our kids are being supported on that piece. We're in the meetings with our psychologists when they're doing treating. And then as far as we see that it's behaviors that is like beyond every day. They need some support, but that's when we collaborate with our mental health partners to send referrals. And those referrals are needed for some type of insurance to be able to support the students. But school counselors, it's not insurance, it needs to come to your counselor. Our superintendent is very much supportive of making sure that is addressed. So she decreased the numbers, we hire more. We also have graduation counselors now, which they kind of just focus on the interventions. So we can focus on the college and career, social emotional pieces. So just being creative in what that looks like to support the whole student to make sure that they get to where they need to. But we have to have that part. And I know we hear that all the time, relationship. That part that's key. You gotta have that relationship, and you gotta be supportive of what that looks like. Because our kids are not just, everything is not black and white at home for every student. It looks different, right? It's not just, they go home, you can't expect that. So then that's our job, is to be able to say, hey, there's some interventions in place. So if I send an email to my teachers, they work with me. They know exactly, like, hey, can you give so-and-so a couple more days to complete this assignment? I don't have to go into that detail. They trust me as a student counselor, so they know that I support their student and whatever's going on at their home, right? So, and that's the key to collaboration. Like, it has to be everybody on the same board in the school. We can't keep thinking like, oh, that's an excuse. Mental health is real. That's the point of this session. It has to be the big thing in Cincinnati and Ohio and the world. We have to address that problem with our kids, because they can't control everything that happens to them. So we gotta be able to support them. They of course, we have that relationship. It's like, what plan? I need your class now. You know, I think if they go 1-2 with you, sometimes that's all they need. Sometimes they just want to come talk. Like they just want to talk, and when you have those supports in the building, it goes a long way. So that piece, and then I also help with any type of situations with teachers, right? If I feel like it's a situation, I'm like, hey, come on, we gotta fix this so you can get your grade. And then also giving the teacher a perspective because they're dealing with stuff as well. We got to find like that as well. Giving them perspective, but also giving that student perspective. Like we're human and being able to support families, right? That's also too, we have kids just come in and manage their parent that day, right? We give them perspective as well, like, hey, so it's just so much when it comes to support not the whole student, but we have to make sure, and I know you keep hearing me say that, but it has to be addressed and has to be taken serious. Like mental health is one of those things that I think some people, sometimes in different communities, is kind of overlooked. And that's another thing that we got to be able to be mindful of the stigma of being able to go get help. A lot of our students have been advocating for that nowadays. So I lead Girls to Women, which is a Sustained Public Schools collaborative. I'm gonna give it right to you. And that's something that they want to address. They want to address being able to be okay to go talk to someone. You know, in our African American community, sometimes it's like, you know, and as a school counselor, that's our job to go get permission for therapy, right? So I'm able to have that conversation with parents so they won't feel attacked. Like, hey, that support doesn't mean that they're somebody trying to dig into what's going on. It's the support that's, it could be just them stressing about tests, anxiety. So giving them a perspective, I'm able to do that when I get called and get permission to be able to get the long-term therapy. Do you want to do it?
You know, everything is simply that family part. I have seen this day deal with families we all have. And it's very important to get the families on board. Now, a lot of times what we find out is that the families want help also. So it starts with the child because they have access to us and they trust us. And once that relationship, as she was talking about, once that relationship that we got with our students, they open up. And then they're more open to getting help as well. So it really does spill out to the community from the school.
Yeah. And that.
Yeah, like she said, you hit on all the points that I've been asked about, like, growing up, I kind of dealt with I didn't believe in his schools. Couldn't get help, so I got under. How do you do?
So we do have that, and I know she said we don't want to be able to. Yeah.
You're in half place.
Okay. Great. So that's a great question, actually. So those students become gay students because I can't get them to the therapy service because now most of the time I'm able to get parents on board as far as just me having a relationship with that parent. And as the good thing is, being a school counselor, I go work for 9 years, we travel with our student. So by this time, that parent knows me. So then when I'm coming and saying, hey, I think she could benefit or he could benefit from this service and bring it down to them a little more, they trust me, so they understand where I'm coming from. Now, it's something that's still, like you said, that's not what we do. So then as a school counselor, I make sure I provide supports in the building. And that means collaborate with our social workers, anybody that can have access in the school, checking with that student weekly. That becomes a priority of ours to make sure they still are getting the support that they need. It might not be the long-term therapy until we can get that parent on board. We're not gonna give up trying, but we're not gonna bombard them either. If they're uncomfortable right now, we'll give them time and then show them some interventions that maybe we've been working in, or my social worker, or my school site. But it becomes a team approach. All ESP on board to support that student because we're not able to get them therapy at this moment.
Yes, Captain was kind of scared because my main word was getting taken away from my parents. Again, all these other ones, everybody scared. And like you said, that stigma.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because we are mandatory reporters. So, you know, we have to make sure we lay the information if we hear anything about harm, and we let them know that. And that, you know, goes different ways. And we got the support from our mental health partners in our children's hospital to help in our SROs to be able to support those things. But that is what they're a concern because they're like, well, I don't want nobody taking me from my parent. But that's what we dig in with our social workers. We have care coordination that comes from our mental health agency. We use Best Point. So those people come in, they go with the whole student and the family. So that means coming to the home, supporting them in that need. So make sure it's not an attack. We got to figure out how to support the student together. That's how everything that we do in collaboration is, how can we work together to support the student? So when we kind of start with that, most parents can be on board because some things they can't control because of what they're dealing with, which was passed on to, it's a generational thing sometimes. So we got to figure, I think the purpose of this thing is how the community, how we can support each other, how we can advocate for it, but also know our resources. Like I told you, school counselors sometimes they just make their schedule. No, I went to school and I was counseling students and went as I was work. That was all I did. I never got taught on how to make a schedule till I got to work. So that piece is a priority for me to make sure people understand that I can address it, but when it comes to long-term piece, I do depend on my partners to be able to address that because we have high caseloads, which I think each year everybody's growing and understanding let's lower this caseload. Let's give more time when students have that school counselor that can just have a small caseload and work with those kids to be able to intervene in the situations where a family does not want to be involved.
The other interesting thing that's really positive is in the state, they passed House Bill 123, which you guys may want to, if you're not familiar, make sure you are. And in that House bill, they're making sure that there are also additional supports for students around who are at risk and have mental health and wellness issues. And so one of them is you have to have some kind of a peer support program. And that peer support empowers kids to be able to talk about mental health and wellness. So the recommended program at the Department of Education is Sources of Strength. And it's an awesome upstream program that the kids run themselves, and they have groups across the country. And so if you could ask your school district, hey, what are you using? Are you meeting House Bill 123? And then you can hear from Brianka's passion. It's critical that we have these kind of services in the schools. We need counselors, we need social workers, and they can't be going to schools, 1 day a week or 2 days a week. You can't form any relationships with families. You can't really problem solve. You can't do the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So,
because with that relation, you get to figure out what they need, and that can be sports. We need you with a sport. You know what I'm saying? I see that you be an additional coach. We have wonderful coaches in our building that work as teachers as well. And coaches, that's another intervention of support. We have collaboratives, the different peer groups, and just the clubs of sports. That's one of them. When I first be with a parent on the first day, what club or sport are you sign up with? Because they tend to do well when you get attached to different people in the building. And so that as school counselor, I'm looking at that. It's like what interventions, and then we bring everyone together.
yeah. So the other piece of it, so we have to have the whole team is, made up of school staff, experts like Brianka and all the counselors and social workers, school psychologists, but then access to school-based mental health or access to mental health treatment. So, and in the world of education, people always talk about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 is prevention, tier 2 is intervention, tier 3 is access to high need. So that means I have diagnosable mental illness and I need access to treatment. And so school-based mental health is really a great model. Now, some families don't want to have mental health treatment in the schools, and that is okay. What Mind Peace cares about is that kids get access to care. But I will say that the outcomes when you're getting mental health treatment at schools can sometimes be better because it's a team approach, always with the parent permission that you're working. So it's also comprehensive. So it's not sort of mental health like. Kids are in the mental health world, you get access to, the front door is through therapy, where a child is assessed. And if there's a diagnosis is provided. And then if there are higher level of needs, then they would get access to case management. If the child is qualified for public insurance, unfortunately, private insurance does not cover case management, that's a whole nother subject. And then medication management if the child needs it, and the parents and the child are okay with that. So all those things, it's a continuum of care. So it's comprehensive. And then this is according to school psychologists, access helps you reduce disciplinary goals, it reduces dropout rates, reduces substance use, reduces involvement in the criminal justice system. So, if you have a really robust school-based mental health system, it can really help outcomes for kids and families. And school funding. So I will say for funding, so what we've tried to do, because again, remember my background was in the for-profit world. And so I really thought, at the time, we need to try to use funding streams in the way that they're envisioned. So we have a healthcare system. So we should be able to use some of the funding from healthcare to be able to help access kids. We do have a significant problem that it's probably going to be on the slide, but right now the reimbursement rates for mental health are quite terrible. So, so people that are going into the field don't get paid very well, and the stress and the needs are great. And so we've had a lot of people leaving the field. We've had a lot of people who said, gosh, I need to have a master's degree. I have to pay for 6 years of college. I'm not going to get paid very much. I won't be able to pay my student loans back. So I'm not going to go into the field at a time of great need. So the last 2.5 years, we've been in a workforce crisis. Cincinnati has been doing a lot of work in this area. Again, community partners coming together. How do we increase funding? The state has put together, they changed the student funding formula. And so you wanted another piece. What is the student funding formula? How much of that is for mental health and wellness? Is that money being used to support counselors, to support social workers? That's what CPS did. Can some of that funding go to mental health partners so that they can attract, enough people to serve in the treatment area? How do we work together to solve that problem? So the other thing is it increases crisis intervention and support. So for instance, in Cincinnati, as a region, we decided that we needed to speak the same language. So across all schools in our region and all mental health partners and Cincinnati Children's, we use the same tools to evaluate kids when they're suicidal. And we have a system, so if someone's suicidal, the counselors, the social workers, the mental health therapists, they all know. They call Children's Hospital. They say, hey, this is what we're seeing on the evaluation we did. We talk to parent, parent is sometimes even on the phone. This is what we think. Do you think we should come on to the emergency room? Do you think we should go for next day care at Children's, which they set up a clinic there? What should we do? It's all coordinated instead of a family just in crisis showing up at an ED and no one knowing what the heck is going on. So that's an example of how the school-based mental health partnerships that are learning that it can change. So Line Peace co-created a mental health network that is a model of school-based mental health. And actually it was chosen as the model for the state of Ohio. And we were asked to write the guidebooks on how you set up partnerships that went out to ODE last year, and they're rolling out coming up. So really proud of the work, not just of MindPeace, but of our partners like CPS and our mental health partners. We've been working at this since 2008. So it's a long time. Yeah. But we have 210 schools. So our first district was CPS. And then since that time, 24 other school districts have joined the network in Cincinnati. So, okay, you guys, I'm a terrible graphics designer. And pretty much all I can do is circles. So anyway, so this is the idea of the network. And then we're going to stop and we're going to take questions and just kind of have a more casual conversation. So the network, which is a 24 school districts with 210 schools, each site has a mental health and wellness team. And now on that site, Brianka, the school counselor, the school social worker, the school psychologist, and administrator, MindPeace representative, the lead mental health partner, all sit at the table and talk about how do we get services to kids. And again, my engineering kind of background, it's like what you measure matters. And so one of the big pieces that we've been in crisis, you've heard it's a mental health crisis in the country, is access to care. So typically in our country right now, less than 50% of kids get access to care. But the measurement for schools is the school health index. 80% of kids should be getting connected to care from referrals. Why not 100%? Because just because if I'm a teacher and I say, hey, your son or daughter needs mental health care, doesn't mean you're correct. That doesn't mean I have to agree with you. So 80% of those referrals should be connected to care. And in our community, which, it's a lot of schools, urban, suburban, rural, public, private, we, last year, even in the workforce crisis, hit 72% of kids got access to care. And we just keep pushing. The year the year that COVID hit, which was March, that year we hit 78% of kids got access to care. We're so close. So now we're climbing back up again. But I'm telling you, the reason is these humans are magic. Okay, it's the work that Brianka was talking about. Like, you have to be like, who has a relationship with that family? What is going on with that kid? How do we get them, access? They don't want school-based, no problem. And then Mindy says, okay, we're going to find them something in the community that works for that family. It's a grind. It's day in, day out. It's not easy work at all. And when you don't have these people sitting around the table, that's when access starts to fall. So then monthly, all the mental health partners in Greater Cincinnati, which we basically have all the big agencies across multiple counties, we come together monthly and then talk about data. Representatives from CPS are sitting at the table. We talk about, what's going on, what are common issues, and then how do we improve? And you have to have this feeling of continuous improvement. You have to say, I just have to keep getting better. So we keep working on different issues. So the big issue that the community decided on was transitions from hospitalization. Why do kids keep getting re-hospitalized? Is it that the transitions home and school aren't going well? Are they getting the supports they need? So we are partnering with Cincinnati Children's, who's, really one of the best quality improvement healthcare organizations in the country. And we have a big network around this issue. And there are 7 school districts representatives. CPS is on it, is one of the 7. They represent all 25 school districts. Then we have 5 mental health organizations, 3 divisions of children's, and we're looking at data. What are the rehospitalization rates? What are the, and what can we do to improve, and how do we test change? So that's some of the work that goes on in this network. And then we are able also to see, then we have school sites by neighborhood. What's missing? What is going on here?
Can I say something?
Yeah,
please. Like what you're talking. Those are the days that we look at as far as community. Women are going to come in and working with students, having those meetings that they have and just talking about domestic violence. So those are the places where we start looking at, like, what can the community bring in, or what support can we bring in, what grants can we come up with to support this. That's why I love all the different people that's in the role, because all of us have a place in what that looks like to support the student.
Yeah, so we just try to be data-driven, and ask deeper questions. So if my discipline rate is going up, why? I want to look at the discipline data. Is it coming from a few teachers? Is it across the school? I remember we were at one elementary, and it was there was a lot of 5th grade girls, and the discipline for those kids were off the charts. And it's well, what's going on here? And then the school got a little deeper, talked about it. It's oh, they're the oldest siblings. Oh, we have the highest domestic violence rate in the city, in this neighborhood. Oh, moms need help and students need help, and we are going to approach that problem much differently than just, let's suspend, let's, whatever. They were just, again, remember what the language of kids are. And, so that's another. The last thing I'll say around language of kids is play. So if you think about how everything has happened, we are either, depending on where you are as a family, either you're having to work. A lot of the kids that I talked to in high schools, I was at Withrow yesterday, and a lot of kids couldn't participate in the clubs because they have a job after school, and they have a job because their families need that economic support. And it's every minute of the day is scheduled. And the language of kids in developmentally is play, and free play. We've taken away play in schools, in the homes, and expect kids to be all the time. And that doesn't help them develop. They need play to be able to, express themselves, to be able to try things, to be able to fail, So if there's anything you can do when you're talking, we've got a lot of stuff that we need you to do, guys. But in your roles, think about some of these things. So anyway, we'll open it
I
up.
know we got questions.
Yep.
I have two questions, but one is, living in Avondale, I don't know if you guys are moms up there, Max. There's a certain issue going on in our community, where it's a transient community and it doesn't, I'm like the only parent, only LMD and all of that. So my thing is knowing the community, what the population is going through and seeing the involvement, how are you guys addressing the mental health needs of a whole, like as a whole and not individual? Or is that possible to address it as a whole, like the whole school, if not individuals?
Right. So again, those are things like put the clubs that we established so that they all have access, right? Versus just one of them don't have insurance or anything like that. So clubs, different access, bringing people in like women health equipment, the YMCA, different preventive partnerships to come in and speak to all those students. Mentors. It's so many people that come and be like, hey, we want to be a mentor, they got a good background and everything like that. And just make sure we're bringing in different community resources to provide for the whole student. That's one, making sure they're connected to someone in the building. Make sure everyone knows who they're connected. Every student in there should have to switch out as a social worker. Everyone has access to those things. So I believe a little bit of everything is collaborating with the community, resources, the LSDMC. They come up with the issue that's going on and address it, and they figure it out together. The IoT goes to the leadership team to figure out what we need more. We need more teachers to do more clubs. We need more access to this. The district. They're always trying to figure out different trips or different exposure activities for all students. So just being creative in what that looks like. Like we definitely lean on our community resources. Our partners that come in say they want to help. What was our thing when we urban? Our community looks at like tutoring, right? Being creative. We just had Woodward Saturday where there's just tutoring all day today. Like in my home with Yates. Like, hey, we need to bring that back. So community help. You see, different parents, alumni. So just getting together and be like, hey, this is the need. We get that information to the LSD, like your people themselves, and then you get what you think of what you need so we can make sure it's available in the building. If it's not available, encourage you to apply as you would take teacher to do a scheduling after school so they can make sure that if you might want to meet in girls and women, you might want to be in just an art teacher class, hopefully that's what you do. It's a way for you to express your journey. That's how you cope. So just making sure they have access, and then it comes from the LSDMC team, then on down. So the ILT, and then we create opportunities. That's up.
We aren't that. If it's okay, I would also add. So for a community-wide, school-wide, or community-wide approach, like to wellness, an organization that you might consider partnering with is 1 in 5.
Okay.
So their mission is around reducing stigma and mental health and wellness education. And so they do some fantastic stuff on staff wellness. So you could do a building-wide staff wellness approach. And then they also do community work, and they have community engagement people. I really like working with them. So that I would recommend asking your resource coordinator if they have a relationship. And if not, then feel free to contact me. I'll introduce you.
And specialize. So the PBIS
Yeah, your PBIS.
PBIS team should be creating interventions for it's not just positive incentives and just positive with that restorative practices, so then like the whole middle that teachers like at PBIS weakness.
I'm just gonna say you're being wise. One of the big things that Veronica does for us is they leave your campaigns, and those campaigns are school wide, and they do announcements and activities around mental health, illness, hygiene, and self-care healing. And those are kind of broadcasted throughout the entire school. So even something, as simple as that from your home school, but putting that information out to everyone, which she's been doing over years, girls in 7th and high school.
Growth is trickling down to the elementary now, and it's something that you want to have in your school. The cursor will be what you like show the comprehensive district to be able to see what that looks like. And also sometimes what I've seen is the educated community, what that looks like if we put on something to be able to speak to the things that we know of. Like I go to, what was it, the Down the Way event a couple years ago? Was it One Love event? I'm not sure. And when I spoke, they was like, oh, I didn't know that resource was available. So just bringing the school back to the community, what that looks like, that's this partner to create. Now, what they think about having where school council be a resource coordinator. A resource coordinator to be able to see what the community need, what does the school need, and let's work together.
And you know, she mentioned Schedule E, which you might not be familiar with, you're not with the thing. That's basically the cognitive hub in every single school that had actual governance. And one year I found out in my high school there were 8 extra Schedule E positions that no one had filled. Because, so ask your kids as a parent sitting on LSDMC, say, what are the Schedule E committees that are programs, and how many are baked in right now? Because you could easily, and they are usually ran by a school staff member.
Yes.
When you go, pardon me, you have an idea. So like, for example, we do an empowerment intercession situation, and my principal was like, "Oh, I have Schedule E here, Bart. Let me tell you to do that." So it's to pay the people the stipend to get the teachers to do that extra time. And so ask your principal how many Schedule E's are open, and that you can adopt. I mean, listen to you. Yeah, it's up. It wasn't math. So yeah, I think you should have known.
Yeah, sure.
When you talked about those 5th grade girls that were talking about my school because they were 6th grade. But so again, I was a teacher for 5 years. This is my first year in administration, and I'm wondering how is it that we close the gap for adults in a village who may not have the understanding of business, who, when students are acting out or quote unquote not being compliant, want to see consequences happen immediately, and don't have the lens that we might have as a school support staff. They don't have the context to understand what might be happening in the family. They might not have the context even of the neighborhoods in which they work, because they don't even really interact with the community, right? They go to school and they leave and they go back to wherever they are and don't have a true understanding of what our students are going home to, what our students are in. And so this is a very personal question for me because, as an administrator, adults in the building, and I know, I was there dealing with student behaviors on a daily basis, and it's like, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Are you doing about it? And I'm like, hold on a second. A consequence may not necessarily be what this child needs. Not to say that they shouldn't be held responsible for whatever, but like you said, the behavior is them talking to us, and yes, I'm trying to figure out what it is that they're saying, but all you see is the behavior and you want a consequence to happen right now. So how do I start to close?
It's such a great question. I'll tell you what, that is the question of the day right now. The intense behaviors that we're seeing in schools, in classrooms, and the need of the students. Sort of how do you address that and provide the right supports, but when you're also not aligned with adults and systems that we have? And so I think, the answer is, twofold. One is, I think it's sort of broken the system between like joining the school system, the educational systems, to the mental health systems, like the medical model versus the education model. They don't always line up, right? And so and there are some districts, including CPS, that are doing some work around, like, how do we change our system inside the school building to line up better so that we're, sort of integrated in a way. And that involves changing some of the work that we do with teachers. It involves coaching. Like, because a lot of teachers have heard about ACEs and they've gotten the science, like pictures of brains and how it changes and all that. And then they're like, okay, well, so what? Like, I understand that, but how do I change my management of my classroom, right? And so I think that there's some tools that we can provide. CPS didn't do, there is some video tools and CPS did with Cincinnati and Children's through joining forces. We can put that link out there so that you guys can use that. That's just like a first, kind of a first resource. Then I think we have to look at like what coaching models can we provide, looking at sort of a, well, CPS even lead you to a sort of practices.
Yeah.
I don't know if in Daku you guys are doing that, but sort of practices versus just, straight out old school discipline. So there's a lot of things. We have a team of people that are working together right now on this very question. Like that was such a good question. So Nicole Fearman from Ninth Piece is working on this. In fact, she met with A.W. Well like 2 weeks ago. Very serious subject. So if you want afterwards, I can give over contact. Thank you today.
And just to add, because I know exactly, that's why I like you heard me say that some people say excuses. It's an everyday thing that we have to keep trying to educate and but also I hope it when we come from a space of like we understand, your perspective as well, making sure that our teachers still support players because we deal with a lot at home as well, support. So once we say like, hey, we understand and it's irritating. Then also just making sure that your support staff, then the attendance of TV, your different staff. But also we try to make sure we have conversation all the time. Like, I don't ever want it to always, because I understand exactly what you're saying. They have all these trainings and you're still like, oh, they tripping. You be like, I understand. And let me, but it's like an everyday battle. Just making sure that, hey, I get what you're saying, but as much as we see, and then we do have different creative presenters that do like the ACEs and make it real. Also, I think, before we did student testimony, not thinking about everything, but just the impact of how the teacher and the support staff showed success in the student exam all the time, had everybody in there teared up, crying. But it's not to give them a side story, but to say the impact of what we did together. I know, she said, I know I was off the chain, and this is what I was going through. And then student testimony, she's grown now, but that is so impactful to make it real because sometimes those training. But when we get some student testimony, get some actually buy-in, but also make sure we hear you with those support that you need. But we also got to continue, like I said, every day. We got to meet them every day, but it do smack. I know yesterday they got on nerves, but today we got to come good morning. Every day it is. I know my teacher's like, nothing to you. I'm coming. I want to support my teachers. Well, for collaborative, as school counselors, we support the student, the parents, and the teachers.
Well, that's why
we understand it.
Exactly, and that's why staff wellness is so that you could ask yourself, like, what is your staff wellness approach, right? And you can start looking at, as your role as an administrator, if you're on the board, what is the attendance rate of your staff? And what's going on there? That's a key indicator of how well they're doing. And, and then what resources can you do? Do you have an employee assistance program that's good? And are you constantly reminding and normalizing, which is, it's actually amazing how much people do not use their employee assistance force. What other big 1 in 5, or other organizations that you want to use. So really look at that too, Good questions.
It's having it. So I thought there that just doesn't work the way without Lighthouse. So I recently stopped with it. So, and I just want to know what is our role, what Lighthouse has to offer because they also handle the LGBTQ community and they have. It's not one thing that's their needs. Help one thing.
So Lighthouse is one of the partners that is part of the school-based mental health network. So they are the lead at some of the schools in Cincinnati, the lead mental health partner. But then they also have all these amazing services. I consider them one of the experts around adolescents and young adults. And so they have some of the shelters They have apartments for independent living. They have a lot of resources. So they're kind of a go-to for us when we're talking about the Alice. Sorry, but they do great work. So excited! Congratulations. Okay. So we're out of time. Thank you so much, you guys, for doing this on Saturday.